Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's greenlight.com/get-started.
And then he's just like, oh, no worries. It turns out there's a mountain with those spells carved onto it. So yeah, you can still do it.
But it's dumber because it's apparently also a prediction of her.
Thank you.
We have never agreed more.
Best friends.
See, you blew it. You just blew it.
Yep. Nope. I felt that. I felt the moment.
Round 31. Tom wins.
Dude, what is that?
Is that a beanbag full of bones?
Yeah, like you don't know.
No what?
This week's essay. It's about the Great Gama, a wrestler who ate whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. He won all the winning.
I mean, he's got us there. That's basically what this week's essay is about.
Yeah, right. See, and so Noah and I, we were just celebrating, just like a quick wrestle among friends.
Really? That seems so unlike him. Where is he?
Right here.
Oh, yikes.
I will go get the cloning machine.
Hurry, please.
We all just die so much.
So much. It's a lot.
So much.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Noah's most recent clone, and I'm going to be refereeing this match, but I won't be in the ring alone. In this corner, two men who luchadors ask to wear masks when they attend, Tom and Eli.
Yeah, over the past few years, I have never felt more at peace with my looks than when the masks were mandated for beautiful people, too.
Yeah. And I look like I'm being kidnapped all the time, so the masks were sort of a come see, come go moment.
And in this corner, a guy who's just too damn pretty to be included in that last joke, Cecil.
Oh, yeah, brother. Yeah.
All right, so before we get going, I want to take a second to thank all the patrons that make all of this possible, because what am I, Heath? Anyway, if you'd like to learn... If you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around to the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Tom, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today, we will be talking about the Great Gama. Gama?
I thought it was Gama, but I have no idea. And
Gama.
Eli, you did whatever it is that you do in preparation for these essays. Are you ready to exhaust our fact checkers?
I sure am, Noah.
So tell us, Eli, who was the Great Gama?
He was the greatest wrestler in world history and perhaps the greatest unarmed combatant. A real-world superhero whose escapades were so stupendous and unbelievable that only one member of our cast could tell his story.
Is it the one who doesn't care whether the stories are true or not? Is that the one?
Yeah, it is, Cecil. Yeah, it is. Ghulam Mohammed Bakash was born on the 22nd of May in 1878 in the Jabawal village in the Amritsar district in the Punjab province of what was then British India. His family were Kashmiri Muslims who, you may have guessed, were not having an awesome time in India at that period in history. So they made their living wrestling Palwani.
I love the idea that a whole family wrestles together, like one family wrestles another family. You get the grandparents involved. Like everybody has to line up with their counterpart.
I'm just picturing an 1878 Indian version of Mean Gene interviewing a wrestling baby now, and I'm so happy.
Okay, a brief side note on Palwani wrestling. Put from your mind the betighted choreographed spectacle that is professional wrestling.
Way ahead of you.
Banish the thought of young men in onesies grappling for college glory. Eschew
Not as far
even,
ahead.
Eschew even the violent kick-punching and arm-bendery of modern MMA. Pelwani is one of the oldest and most brutal combat sports in the world.
Okay, yeah, rugby. Got it.
So the rules are simple. The fighting area is either a circular or square shape, measuring at least 14 feet across. Rather than using modern mats, Pelwani fighters did, and still do, train and compete on dirt floors. Before a match, the floor is cleared of any pebbles or stones, and then buttermilk, oil, and red ochre is sprinkled on the ground, giving the dirt its red hue. Not coincidentally, this color also hides any blood that lands on it. Water is added to this surface every few days to keep it at the right consistency. Soft enough to avoid injury, but hard enough so as not to impede the wrestler's movements.
The buttermilk makes the fight a really nice, fluffy texture, and then it gives it a touch of sourness. It's really just perfect.
So, wait a minute. Sorry, water is added every few days? How the fuck long are these matches?
You know, Eli, this is a really long intro to I want to talk about mud wrestling again.
That's fair. That is fair. Now, interestingly, despite the marked boundaries of the arena, competitors are allowed to go outside the ring during a match with no penalty. In at least one article I read, the fighting area is only designated to keep fighters from running away.
Oh, interesting. So, okay, I mean, obviously they'd be able to leave the ring though, because like where the hell else would they find a folding chair?
Exactly. There are no rounds in Pelwani, but the length of every bout is specified beforehand. Usually it's about 25 to 30 minutes. If both competitors agree, the length of the match may be extended, and match extensions are usually around 10 to 15 minutes each. Unlike mat-based wrestling, there's no point-scoring system. A win is achieved by pinning the opponent's shoulders and hips to the ground simultaneously. Although, victory by knockout, stoppage, or submission is also possible. And, at least as far as I could find, that's it for the rules. When I Googled, Pelwani, eye gouging, groin strikes, I found a couple new kinks, but nothing to suggest that those techniques are forbidden in the sport. In short, Pelwani wrestling consists of beating your opponent into submission, unconsciousness, or sometimes mercifully, just the ground.
It sounds like the type of fights my dad always lost to alcohol.
This seems like a really hard sport to train for. I lost 2 practice matches, my fertility, and an eyeball. And we had to run suicide. The coach is a dick.
Just wearing a big buttermilk hefty bag around. You're walking around.
But we're not to the wrestling yet. See, Gama first attracted national attention at the age of 10 in 1888 when he entered a strongman competition held in Jodhpur. The contest was attended by more than 400 wrestlers, many of whom were, fucking adults, but Gama was among the last 15 standing after rounds that included hundreds of squats, thousands of push-ups, and other feats of strength. And as a result, he was named the winner by the Maharaja of Jodhpur, who was impressed both by his skills and his young age.
Okay, I'm not saying I'm unimpressed, but hundreds of squats is just like the standard aftermath of a meal at Olive Garden. I did that last Tuesday.
Yeah, if the feats of strength are body weight exercises, I got my money on just about any hyperactive fourth grader for winning.
Right.
So by the age of 15, Gama was a professional wrestler dominating the Pelwani circuit. How dominant was he, you ask? In the 2 years and perhaps hundreds of bouts that made up the beginning of his career, he did not lose or draw a single match.
Until the Kumite, when we went up against Frank Dude.
So then, in 1895, at the age of just 17, he challenged the then Indian wrestling champion, Rahim Baksh Sultani Wala, or, as he was known for editorial purposes, Rahim the Giant. Rahim was 7 feet tall and was expected to defeat the 5'7" teenager easily.
Jesus.
But instead, the match lasted for hours, eventually ending in a draw. Wahim, at the end of the match, promptly retired before the fucking Oompa Loompa got hair on his balls, and Gama continued to dominate India for the next 15 years. Once again, never losing a single match.
Yeah, England dominated India for those 15 years. But yes,
Oh, shit.
By 1910, Gama has literally defeated every wrestler in the subcontinent. There are stories, probably not true, of wrestlers at local villages hiding themselves or dressing up as their wives when Gama and his posse came to town so he wouldn't challenge them. So Gama sails to London in hopes of competing with some Western wrestlers and finding a challenge.
Because hiding under your bed so you don't have to fight a guy is like a real reputation saver? I don't get it.
Well, it's a ball saver.
I guess that's true. An eyeball saver, yeah.
Yeah, man, because I feel like it's a weird culture shock moment, like when Gama's standing there with some fucking English dude's bloody ripped off coin purse in his hands, and he's just like, what? We don't do nut stuff here? Oh, this is awkward. This is very awkward.
Hey, buddy. So when Gama arrives in jolly old England, he attempts to enter the John Bull heavyweight tournament, but he's denied entry because he doesn't weigh enough to be a European heavyweight. So Gama issues a challenge that he can throw any 3 wrestlers in 30 minutes of any weight class, a claim that's so insane everyone assumes he's just some whack job amateur looking to get himself hurt, and so nobody takes him up on it.
Well, yeah, no, because the Brits at the time were notorious for their hesitancy to hurt Indians.
So Gama presents another challenge, specifically to the heavyweight wrestlers. He challenged 2 famous champs, Stanislaus Zbyszko and Frank Gotch.
Okay, if his catchphrase when he grabs you isn't "gotcha," I am quitting the show.
Right.
That's fair. No, that's
Right.
So he challenges those 2 guys that either he would beat them or personally pay them their prize money and go home. Now, neither of those 2 guys took him up on his offer, but the American Benjamin Roller did. Gama pinned Roller in 1 minute and 40 seconds. Roller was so surprised, he instantly demanded a rematch. This time, the match lasted 9 minutes and 10 seconds. By the second day of the tournament, word had gotten around both of Gama and his challenge, and he defeated 12 wrestlers in a row, gaining himself official entry despite his weight.
Official entry despite his weight. It's like Eli talking himself onto an overloaded elevator.
And so, on the 10th of September of 1910, the Great Gama got to face Stanislaus Zbyszko, considered by many at the time to be the greatest wrestler in the world, in the finals of the John Bull World Championship in London. The match was worth £250 in prize money and the John Bull belt. The match began, and Gama takes Zbyszko down for the first minute, and Zbyszko remained down for the remaining 2 hours and 35 minutes of the match.
Did they agree on that timeline for their...
So what happened during that 2 hours and 35 minutes depends on your perspective. If you're Zbyszko, you might say that he valiantly held off the Indian champion, thwarting his every trick and attempting to best him, and at long last, the 2 valiant competitors agreed to call it a draw. However, far more contemporary accounts, including the press covering the event, insisted that Zbyszko just curled into a ball while Gama beat the ever-loving shit out of him for 2.5 hours. Further credence is lent to this latter claim by the fact that when a rematch was scheduled for a week later, Zbyszko just didn't fucking show up. And Gama was declared the winner by default.
I had 2.5 hour wrestling matches. How fucking starved for entertainment do you have to be to keep watching this before checking your phone was even invented?
After that, Gama traveled around Europe kicking asses. Again, never losing a match. He and Benjamin Roller had a rematch where Gama threw Roller 13 times in 15 minutes before he won. He faced the wrestling champions of Sweden, the Netherlands, and France. He had a rematch with Zbyszko, which he won in 39 seconds. And at long last, Rahim, the giant, came out of retirement to face him. Gama won handily, but for the rest of his life, when he was asked who the toughest wrestler he ever faced was, he said Rahim the Giant.
Yeah, that guy said he was Raheem the Giant, but it was really Benjamin Roller on someone's shoulders in a big trench coat.
Yeah,
that's who he was. Yeah.
So after beating Rahim, Gama cannot find other challengers. He offered to wrestle 20 guys in a row. Nobody took him up on it.
Yeah, I feel like that's become a pretty typical end of niche career desperation move.
He offered to pay his opponents prize money whether they won or lost. Nobody took him up on it. The final official match of his career was against Jesse Peterson of Sweden in February of 1929. The bout lasted 1.5 minutes. Gama had gone his entire career without a loss, and to celebrate, Prince of Wales presented him with a giant silver mace.
All right.
Baller.
Well, Eli, you appear to have written half an essay. Is there more to this story, or should we see if Tom has a monologue or two about the fall of nations?
Oh, there's more, Noah. But that's because in the later half of his life, Gama fought not just for fame, but for justice.
All right. Well, while we work out just what Gama's bat signal would look like, we're going to have to take a quick break for a little apropos of nothing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the John Bull Wrestling Tournament of the World.
And what a tournament it's been, Mick. Wrestler after wrestler has fallen under the mighty hand of the Great Gama. But perhaps our boy can hold out hope.
I certainly hope so, Steve. And here come the two combatants now. On the left, the aforementioned Gama, undefeated champion of the far-off land of India. And on the right is just some guy.
That's right, Mick. Now, it is vital to remember that at this point in history, the finest athletes Europe has to offer are just fucking guys you'd see at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Exactly. No training for these boys, just slightly beneficial genetics and eating a bunch of eggs for lunch or something.
And the match has begun. Gama approaches his opponent. And yes, he's thrown him on the ground and he has pinned him.
He has indeed, and I can't emphasize enough that he did that because he's an undefeated wrestler and his opponent is just some fucking dude.
White people aren't going to play sports for very much longer, are we?
We sure aren't, Steve. We sure aren't. All right, so when we last left off, Gama had kicked all of the asses there were to kick. So what happens next?
Okay, so before we get to what happens next, I have to explain that Gama wasn't just a good wrestler, he was freakishly strong. He once lifted a 1,200 kilogram stone in a feat so famous, the stone is still in a museum
No, he's
in India.
fucking did not. You can juice yourself like a fucking Valencia orange, and you are not lifting anything close to that.
Oh, God. As much as I love calling out Eli's essays, the Olympic record lift is over 2,800 kilos.
No, it's not.
Yeah, dude,
So
you got to see the picture. It's hilarious, dude. It's such an insane amount of weight.
All right, so his training regime and diet were insane. Gama used to do 5,000 squats and 3,000 push-ups every day. Part of his training regimen was later adopted by Bruce Lee, who was a huge fan and read everything he could get his hands on about Gama. Gama apparently ate 10 liters of milk, 6 Desi chickens, and 1.5 pounds of crushed almond paste made into a tonic drink every single day.
Okay, I know you're a vegan and all, but I shouldn't have to tell you that milk isn't a thing one eats. Or tonic drinks, honestly. It's weird phrasing.
That is 5,000 squats and 3,000 push-ups every day. You know what they say? No irreversible joint damage, no gain.
No kidding. Right? No repetitive injury, no gain.
Yeah,
Right.
so with a guy like that, you can imagine that the last thing people want is for him to get political. But political is what he got. Gama now began campaigning for things like free rail travel for poor Indians. He challenged the British government of India that he would stop a moving train with his bare hands if they'd make rail travel free on the 11-kilometer stretch near his village. The government did some research and then refused his challenge.
Oh, hey, boss. Some big guy out there says we can squish him with a train.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, but we'd have to lose a bunch of money giving away free train rides. Pass? Oh, man, I really thought that'd do it. What?
Then, in 1947, the British leave and partition happens. A quick historical aside about partition. You know how your Uncle Frank doesn't understand why you can't just leave Afghanistan and let them figure it out for themselves? Well, the reason for that is partition. These once occupied territories are abandoned completely over the course of not years, but months. And the British pretty much just say to themselves, hey, it's the Hindus and the Muslims and some Christians in some of the poorest, most oppressed places in the world. I'm sure they'll figure it out fine if we just leave a giant power vacuum, and they fuck off. Spoiler alert, they did not figure it out fine.
Well, right. And on top of all that, the whole process is booby trapped by the Brits as well. Right. So it's like handing over yard work to a guy, but you take all the equipment with you and then you bury a couple landmines in the grass. Right. And then you pat yourself on the back about how much better the lawn looked when you were in charge of it.
So with the myriad of other bad stuff that comes with partition come religious riots and literal murder mobs that would descend on small towns and villages of minority religions and murder everybody. Gama, who I'll remind you is a Muslim, is living in Pakistan at the time and hears about this happening, so he vows to protect the Hindu village that he lives nearby.
They come to start trouble, and Gama's just standing against a wall, and he drinks a whole cow and then just cracks his knuckles.
Oh, you're so close, Cecil. You're so actually literally close.
Hey, you know what? I'll get you in a minute. I got 5 hours of push-ups to finish first, though.
So, sure enough, rumors reach him that there's a heavily armed murder mob headed right for his village. So he closes down his wrestling school, takes a couple students with him, and stands at the city's front gates. The mob arrives at the city, only to find the, let me remind you, 69-year-old world champion of Fuck You Up blocking their way, wielding a giant silver mace that the Prince of Wales had given him.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
This mace, by the way, is worth a Google. It's not what you're picturing. It looks like a giant baby rattle, and it's like the size of his torso.
Oh.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, so for the weapon nerds, it's a gada, but done up British royalty style, meaning like ridiculously huge and big and strong. It's like it looks like to even lift it, the Norse gods would have to deem you worthy.
Yeah. So the mob asks Gama to move. Gama asks them to move. The leader of the mob asks Gama if he thinks he can fight all of them. Gama asks him if he thinks that they can all fight him. The leader of the mob then attacks Gama with an axe, and Gama slaps him with his hand so hard that he fucking dies. What? Let me say that again. He slapped a dude to death.
Yeah, but he was holding a 1,200 kilogram rock
in one hand. Yeah.
Gama then turns to the mob and says, "Who's next?" Needless to say, the mob all fled.
Yeah, also, this dude absolutely dominated hand slap.
Right?
games.
Yeah,
Just
no.
fucking dominated.
Slaps your hand right off.
Or the fucking slap game where they stand up and they slap each other and try to knock each other out.
yeah.
Oh, that's what
Yeah.
he plays. Fucking hit the guy and his head will fly over the mountains. Are you kidding me?
But Gama knew he couldn't stand at the gates of the city slapping guys to death forever, so using money from his own pocket, he bought the entire town a week's worth of rations and personally escorted them over the border to safety
Escorted them is a little different. He just hit the mountain with his mace and they just walk right through the new pass he made.
He punches the ground behind him when they cross, and a great chasm opens between Pakistan and India.
So Gama accepted the occasional challenge until he retired in 1955 at the age of 77. Over the 50 plus years of his career, he wrestled more than 5,000 recorded matches, and he never, ever lost. Gama was given land and a monthly pension by the government, and they supported his medical expenses until his death on the 23rd of May of 1960.
All right, so if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be?
He slapped a guy to death.
That's the takeaway. That's certainly the takeaway. All right, so you ready for the quiz?
I'm ready.
All right, I got a question for you. If the Great Gama opened a 6 chickens and 2 cows worth of milk themed restaurant in his old age, what would its slogan have been? A, because you gotta eat somewhere. B, putting the eat in undefeated. E, a Calcutta above the rest. Or D, eat here or I'll slap you to death.
That's the winner. That's the winner.
Oh, C was good, but I got to go with D. Eat here or I'll slap you to death.
It was D, in fact, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Eli. What's the movie about this guy lifting a big rock called? A, Lifter Nice Guy. Nice is spelled with a G-N. All you geology nerds are like, yes. B, things to do in Denver when you're dead lifting. C, romancing the stone. Or D, the slate graspy. Slate graspy. Slate graspy.
Oh, I'm going to go with bromancing the stone. That one was definitely the smoothest.
That is exactly it. Romancing the stone.
All right, Eli, I admit that I am fascinated by what the human body can be molded to do and then how we test it. Which of the below is the most impressive feat of real strength? A, the wife carrying championships, an obstacle course where the husband carries his wife around like a sack. B, the man versus horse marathon, a 22-mile race of men racing against a guy on horseback.
What?
C, the cannonball catch.
What?
Which is where a guy catches a cannonball that was shot at him and sometimes doesn't die. Or D, one time Noah saw someone was wrong on the internet and didn't correct them.
Okay, well, I know that last one isn't real, so secret answer E, A,
I made
B,
that
and
one up.
C?
A, B, and C. Damn
I
it.
knew it.
Saw through my clever ruse.
All right, it looks like Eli is this week's winner.
All right, well, I haven't sat on the end of a dock and mused on the fragility of man in a while, so let's get an essay from Tom next week.
All right, well, for Cecil, Eli, and Tom, I'm Noah. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We're going to be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, check out any random podcast, and there's like a 1 in 16 chance at least one of us will be on it. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can go per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com.
I forgot to write a post beep so I could tell you guys my favorite fact that didn't make it into the essay. When he slapped that guy to death, that guy's family went to the cops and they were like, hey, this guy slapped our son to death. And they were like, wasn't your son trying to murder him at the time? And they were like, yeah, he was. But still, murder's murder. Go get him. And they were like, who do you suggest should arrest him? And they were like, fair point. And they left, and that was it. That guy was just dead. That's it.
Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.